It's Solo's touch.
My name is Mark and I am 8 and I go to the David Bowie Annex Junior School. It is good. My teacher says I have a lot of initiative, but I think I will still have to work for a living. I am having a party soon at National Burgers Incorporated, and when I grow up I want to work in there and be a fast food police person and wear them uniforms, and if someone tries to run off without paying, you can disintegrate them. It will be good. Or I would like to work at this place in our street called Ye Olde Computer Software Shoppy, and an horrible old man works in there. I won't be horrible when I am 20 like him. By Mark, aged 8, year 2001. Miss, finished.
Since the Second World War, the politicians have continually promised to provide jobs for everybody. But for the last 20 years, the number of people out of work has been increasing. It's not just the unemployed who are having difficulty finding work.
The difficulty for us today in our society is that the idea of work has become much too limited and inflexible and is virtually restricted to the notion of employment, so that a man and his dependents have to find employment from someone else.
And today, working for someone else doesn't guarantee you a secure future.
Shocked workers heard the news at noon today after senior union officials were summoned to the factory. All 440 workers have now received redundancy notices, and they've been told Charles H. Rowe will close by September. The factory has two main products, double-deck bus bodies and the Royal Tiger luxury coach. As workers left the factory tonight, most were devastated by the news.
Worked there since 1936, and then that's what you get, innit?
Do you think they'll try and fight the closure of the workforce?
Well, they are doing, aren't they?
Pig sick.
Were you expecting it at all?
Not at all, no.
Terrible.
This. Shocking.
Were you expecting it at all?
No.
Disasters. Yes. Yes, 49 years service, mate. Yes.
Did you ever think it would come to this?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Honestly, no.
49 years after starting work at the bus factory, Ted Dalby now has the time he never had to keep his garden tidy. Over the years, he saw many changes to his job, each change requiring a little less of his skills.
The pleasure of building a bus in the latter years diminished from building it in the early years, because you didn't require the same amount of skill, and it wasn't articulate. A lot of the work were done fire, a lot of the oils were drilled, a lot of the thinking were done fire, and you sort of became a sort of human machine just putting the thing together, because it were all immensely organised. It just went together reasonably easy. In the early days, the whole thing was all wood. The body was completely made of wood. And then, as the time went on from the 50s, that was in that day it was called a composite body. That was a metal top deck and a wood bottom deck, teak. And then after the 50s, it went on to complete alloy body, the whole thing, and the whole system of screws, they disappeared, and rivets, solid rivets, and all these sophisticated fastenings of today took over, and the whole thing was metal, so you finished up with a load of box of tools that you're no longer required to do that type of work with, because it was a different venture.
It was the new construction methods, along with reduced demand for British buses, that cost Ted his job. The last decade has seen over 2.25 million jobs disappear from manufacturing industry alone, mainly from the older heavy industries like shipbuilding, steel and car making. And there's little chance of them coming back.
Now all those jobs have disappeared, and they've disappeared permanently due to other countries being able to make things cheaper than us, due to processes being automated and robots and things like that. And basically one of the things that's happened is that we've got a large increase in unemployment, as everyone knows. It's particularly people with few skills. or whose skills have become no longer relevant. It's particularly young people, school leavers. A quarter of all under-19s are unemployed nationally.
So with the odds stacked against school leavers, what's the best plan when it comes to finding a job? Well, it makes sense to look at the areas still showing growth. Not all industries are losing jobs. The service sector has grown by almost as much as manufacturing has declined. This means we'll see more office jobs than factory jobs. More restaurants, pubs and canteens than building sites. More of any kind of job that offers a service. The drawback is that within areas of the service industry, the wages are low and part-time work is common. But the growth area of the future is the information industry. This company, Systime, has grown from just a handful of people 10 years ago to what's now a substantial international enterprise, employing around 1,100 people worldwide. And all because of the demand for these, computers. Computers are important because they can store vast quantities of data along with the instructions telling it what to do with that data. Many people think of computers as being only for whiz kids, but like typewriters and telephones, they're the tools that every prospective employee should know about, because more and more jobs will involve computers in some way, especially in the office. Information is the raw material of office work. Writing memos, typing and filing are all information jobs, and the computer can do them all. This means that in future, many office jobs will carry a higher degree of responsibility than before. Everybody, managers included, will need some skill at using a computer keyboard. But the computer revolution doesn't stop in the office. Certain jobs in the clothing industry have always been manual jobs, mainly because it wasn't thought possible for a machine to do what a skillful craftsman could. One of these jobs is the making of patterns. Patterns come in a variety of sizes, and it's the grader's job to take the original and to create a range of sizes from it. These patterns are then used on the factory floor as a guide for cutting out the pieces of material that go to make up the garment. A job needing a high degree of skill if waste is to be kept to a minimum. So to get to this stage has required a job chain of at least 3 people. First, the designer, who creates the original pattern, then the grader, who makes a range of sizes from it, and finally the cutter, who uses it to cut out the cloth. Now, with the help of a computer, a designer can draw the pattern electronically on a screen. She can change it as many times as she likes without wasting time or material. And it's the computer that does the grading, even calculating the most efficient use of the cloth. And because the pattern is in the computer's memory, that data can be used to control a laser cutter, which cuts out the pattern, or even the cloth if required. So one highly trained operator can now do alone what previously needed 3 people. What this means is that many of the new jobs in industries using high technology will go to those who can offer a wide range of skills, including computer skills, and a higher standard of general education. Someone who's already learned this lesson is 17-year-old Seamus King. He joined Complan Technology Limited in Leeds and found that his ideas about what career path to follow changed considerably.
What I wanted to do when I left school was be a joiner, but couldn't really find, any work in that line. So I stopped looking for a while, to tell you the truth. But then I started looking again for another job. And I got 3 jobs in 3 days, and this seems the best of the 3, so I took this one. Well, when I came here, I was very impressed. I forgot all about joinery, really. I was very interested in the computer and in clothes, really, pattern construction and that sort of thing. Basically, I'm just learning both sides, learning the computer side of the industry, and I'm going to college at the moment to learn about, manual pattern grading, pattern cutting. I'd much rather be a designer than, a computer technician. I'm going to college, as I've said, That's to learn about pattern drafting. You know. There's no computers really involved there. So really, what I really want to do is to work with patterns, not really computers. Computers is another side of it, really. They can't do everything. You still need operators to use a computer, to work a computer. And if there's no one to push the buttons, computer's nothing.
Information Technology Centres, or ITECs, were created specifically to cater for a world where computer and electronic-related skills will be in greater demand. And for school leavers with an interest in the subject but few qualifications, they offer a way into the world of high technology. And not just for the boys either. ITECs are keen to encourage young women to get involved with information technology.
We offer training under the YTS umbrella. We are a Mode B1 scheme, so we offer training to a mixed group of young people for a year's duration in 3 main areas, that is computing, electronics and electronic office. The recruitment of young women is something that we are very involved in, if you like. It is one of my prime objectives as training officer. The young men will tend to look after themselves. They are attracted by the idea of computing and electronics training. Now, for young women, we first have to attract them and actually make them believe that this sort of training is something that they can do themselves, that is about them and possibly about the future. However, when they first start with us, we do train them separately, and this is to build up their confidence specifically in the area of electronics. Once they've trained for 6 weeks separately, we usually find they've built up a group identity amongst the girls themselves. They are more secure once they're here, and then their training usually takes off. Whenever I talk to somebody who's thinking about coming onto the scheme, I do talk about employment and further education in the same breath, because this sort of training is something that might enable them to take up a place in further education perhaps more easily than if they hadn't done a year with us.
If they can get into further education, or if they've got the interest in further education, there's absolutely no doubt that that's an investment in the future, because the new jobs are going to ask for more qualifications to start with. And the more qualifications you have, it may be a sad fact, but the better chance you've got of getting the few or the decreased number of jobs that are around.
But although education could be the deciding factor in getting a job, and of course it's important in its own right, the fact remains that qualifications or not, the number of young people looking for work will be greater than the number of jobs available. Jobs are important, but they're not the only way in which an individual can find work.
Our problem, our task, is that we have got to move from the narrow definition of work as employment to a much wider, more flexible definition of work. Now, in my view, no government can lay down the rules. No government can step in and say, right, this is how things are going to be. We'll all have to do things differently, for 2 reasons. One is that nobody knows quite how it's going to work out, and the other is that we wouldn't accept it anyway. That makes this a particularly interesting period of history, to my mind, because it's what people are actually doing in their backyards and out in the fields that is making history now.
I was on a YOP scheme after I left school, straight after, which just fell through after the 6 months, and that was about it really for jobs. I was employed more or less full-time as a mechanic after that, but that fell through again. You know, what I really wanted to do was ride my bike. I was thinking most days, I wish I was out on my bike and I wish I was doing this and that, so I think it just got to me really, and I'm doing what I want to do now, I think, really. The thing that makes me happy. Why should you do something in life that you don't enjoy doing? You might as well do the job that you want to do and enjoy it, no matter what it is.
18-year-old Patrick Collerton is an example of a new and growing attitude to work. Although he doesn't have a job, could he really be said to be unemployed?
Basically, a day would consist of, me getting up 8:15, I'd be out for 2.5 hours, I'd come back, and then basically the rest of the afternoon just be resting up, and then to be out again at say 6, which would consist of another 2 hours training, and then back, rest and to bed. That's basically, you know, a day there.
And because Patrick has chosen to do something he loves, doing it day after day is no problem.
5 days a week, Monday through to Friday, and then Saturday or Sunday I'd be racing, or if I was racing on the Sunday, I'd take it easy, you know, on Saturday, save tiring myself out.
The only drawback to this way of life is that living on social security means money is tight.
If you can, say, if you can get employment in winter, you work the winter months and then save up a bit of money and buy your equipment for the year. You do get stuck sometimes for tyres and what have you, if you keep punching in races, and plus there's race entry fees, you know, they're £2 a race, so you've got to afford that, and then there's travelling to the races, and that's all, even if you don't win.
But what does he say to suggestions that he's nothing but a scrounger living off the state?
The job that I do, when I do it, you know, 5 days a week, is just as hard, if not harder. Like, I'm at, say, training up to 24 hours a week in a total week, which is probably, you know, equal to their 2 weeks' work. They might be as tired. I'd say mine's just as hard, and also there is a job at the end of it. You know, there's always got to be sportsmen, haven't there? I mean, if everybody who's a sportsman fought that, there wouldn't be any Olympics or anything, would there? I wouldn't mind a job on the bicycle trade, say, when I finish my cycling in my 30s, say. But I don't think I'd like any other job to do, if anything else. I'm happy what I'm doing.
Patrick is obviously suited to a lifestyle based on cycling, but does this approach offer a realistic alternative to a job?
I think young people may not feel quite so good about work in some ways as we think they ought to. That's why we're not always the best judges. So in terms of them doing other things that they are keen on, like developing an interest in lifestyle or in music or in hairstyles or anything like that, that may well be much more healthy for them in the long run, particularly if they deepen that interest and spend a lot of time working on it, almost make it into a speciality. Because who's to say that an interest in hairstyles might not lead one day to some sort of work or some sort of business, or at least to making a contribution to other people, which is what, in the real sense of the word work is about.
Traditionally, work in our society has meant doing a job. It didn't matter if the job was boring or dead-end, just to be employed was enough. Now, with mass unemployment a reality, we've got to rethink our ideas about work.
It's crucial for individuals, particularly at the beginning of life, to understand that work, employment even, is not just a question of bringing home the bacon, of getting the money and the rations. Work has been explored and has been shown to be very much more important for individuals than that. And essentially there are 5 reasons why work is important. The first is activity, physical, mental activity, functions of the body and mind. And without that, we all atrophy. The second is forms of social contact. You're in amongst people. You may not like them, but you've got to get on with them and you've got to react to them. Isolation doesn't do any of us any good for long periods. Thirdly, it gives some sort of regularity, some sort of structure, program, timetable to life. Of course, we grumble at it all the time, especially on Monday mornings. But without it, we gradually go to pieces. Fourthly, it gives us status. It answers the question, who am I? And it tells other people who I am. I am an apprentice. I am a student. I am a minor. I am a university lecturer. One of the first questions we want to know about anybody is, who is he? What does he do? And only fifthly does employment or work give money. So anybody thinking about himself or herself in relation to the world of work needs to think how he or she is going to satisfy all 5 of those essential demands.